Yo, what's good? Amateur Lore here, and we're back with a little something different today. Today I wanted to take a look at a couple college football teams who started their season extremely hot but finished it ice cold. Anyway, these videos take a long time to make, so a like and a sub would be extremely appreciated. And if you have any other ideas or video topics you think I should cover, comment it down below. But with all out the way, let's hop right into the video. Okay, so the first team we're going to be taking a look at in this video is the 2012 West Virginia Mountaineers. I'm honestly surprised I haven't made one of these type of videos with West Virginia before, because this program has a lot of history and a lot of fun seasons to look at. Maybe in the future I'll take a look at their 2007 season if you guys really want that. So coming into the 2012 college football season, dare I say West Virginia was on one of their most dominant stretches in program history, as in 2005 they'd go 11-1 with the Sugar Bowl win, 11-2 in 2006, 11-2 again in 2007 with the Fiesta Bowl win, 3 straight 9-4 seasons from 2008 until 2010, and finally in 2011 going 10-3 with the Orange Bowl win. Yeah, 3 BCS bowl game wins in 7 years, while being consistent natty contenders. The Mountaineers were on a heater coming into the 2012 college football season, with their stock as high as it's ever been, evident by their 11th spot in the preseason polls. So when going back in time and taking a look at the Big 12 preseason predictions for the year 2012, it seemed like the 11th ranking given to the Mountaineers wasn't just for show, as majority of the Big 12 media had them finishing second this year only behind one of the blue bloods of college football, the Oklahoma Sooners, who were coming into the season ranked 7 spots ahead of West Virginia in the AP polls at the 4th spot. While the Sooners would start the season ranked ahead of the Mountaineers, West Virginia would at least have the advantage of hosting them at home during their Week 10 matchup, which if things played out how they should, then that matchup would likely be the game that decides the Big 12. That was a short little intro. Now let's take a look at some of the shinobi making noise around the village hidden in Morgantown. Starting with the Hokage, leading the Mountaineers in only his second year up to that point was head coach Dana Holgorsen. And I don't know if it's just me, but he always looks stressed as fuck on the sidelines. Whoever's his barber needs a raise, or maybe to get fired, I honestly can't tell. Sliding over to the quarterback position, the man running the West Virginia offense was current Las Vegas Raider Geno Smith, who'd have a monster season, passing for 4,205 yards with 42 touchdowns and only 6 interceptions. At running back, while this team's focal point was definitely throwing bombs, Andrew Bowie would still have a decent season, rushing for 851 yards with 7 touchdowns. Swagging over to the receiving room, this team had a pair of Lord of Cinders at wideout, starting with Tavon Austin, who'd catch 114 passes for 1,289 yards with 12 touchdowns. And I know those stats are crazy, but his partner in crime, Stedman Bailey, stats take the cake, catching 114 passes for 1,622 yards and 25 touchdowns. Damn. No cap, I've made like 40 plus college football videos at this point, and I've never seen stats like this from a pair of receivers. That's pretty amazing. Alright, so to open up the 2012 college football season, West Virginia would start with 2 tune-up games versus Marshall and James Madison. Versus Marshall, West Virginia would hang a nasty 69 points on the herd, winning 69-34. Geno Smith was podcasting from the pocket, going 32 of 36 for 323 yards and 4 touchdowns. This game was pretty much over by halftime. Against James Madison, nothing much would change, as West Virginia would be up 21-0 by the end of the first quarter, playing on cruise control for the rest of the matchup, winning in the end 42-12. And of course, Geno was elite from the hot pocket, passing for 411 yards with 5 touchdowns. West Virginia was now 2-0 and would move up a little in the polls to the 9th spot, going into their next game at home versus Maryland. The Terps came to play this match, as every time the Mountaineers would strike, they would always have a response, never letting themselves fall too far behind, going into halftime only down by 10 to West Virginia. The whole entire third quarter, neither team would be able to punch it into the end zone, but West Virginia would strike first in the 4th quarter, putting the score at 31-10, and West Virginia would hold on, winning 31-21. Geno was Geno, passing for a cool 383 yards with 3 touchdowns, doing his job to help his team get the dub. The Mountaineers were off to a pretty nice start, but the competition was stepping up to a whole nother level, as their next 2 games would be against ranked opponents, like a home game versus 25th ranked Baylor, and then the following week on the road at the 11th ranked Texas Longhorns. Warning, if you like defense, close your eyes, because Baylor versus West Virginia will heavily offend you.
And we're underway. Short kick taken 5-yard line. Dimitri Goodson up the middle at the 30. Trigger again. Florence stands in that pocket over the top. Off the hands and intercept to the line, and let's pull the trigger again. Over the top, wide open on the hands of Williams at the 25-20. And he's stuck on Florence. Hand off, walks in, touch. Dewey. Touchdown. Florence, the handoff. 5 wide receiver set, empty backfield pressure up top. Oh! Just got the snap away. Florence stands, throws, far side, pitch and catch, caught. Williams. Martin.
Johnson.
No gain on that play. Second down 10. Smith in the pocket. Goes middle field. Up top. Off the button. Touchdown. Early. And then he's been nearly perfect since. There's the pump. He's got man coverage up top. On the run. Tevin Reese breaks a tackle. Touchdown. Quick throw. Got man coverage up top. touchdown! That could be the final play of this wild first half. Florence breaks out of the pocket, little pitch out. Sampson, oh my! Touchdown! Baylor's pressure off the edge. There's a tackle broken. Austin, see ya. 10-5, touchdown. Here, went under the pros, was 6 in a game. Gino sets his feet, patient. Looks downfield, got a man open, up top. Austin, touchdown. 4 minutes here in the third. Florence, deep ball, man coverage up top. Touchdown.
3 to the bottom.
They put a man in motion. That's Austin. Up top, wide open. Oh my, busted coverage. Bailey on the run. 20, 10, 5, touchdown. Right now they're looking at second down. Play action. Geno Smith, good protection. Wants the deep ball. Up top, touchdown.
Touchdown passes and no interceptions. And West Virginia wins their debut in the Big 12.
Sometimes I feel so blessed that I get to sit back and rewatch some of these old highlights, because West Virginia vs. Baylor was a treat. I don't think I've ever seen so many deep passes for a touchdown in a single game ever. This matchup was all offense. The score going into halftime would get this be 35-35. Thankfully for West Virginia, coming out of the locker room after halftime, they would play a little bit more defense, really taking control of this game and setting themselves up to win the game by scoring 21 straight points in the third. Baylor would attempt to claw their way back into the game, and they would a little, being able to cut the lead down to about 10. But West Virginia would always have a response, winning the game versus the Bears 70-63. Geno Smith was unreal this game, going 45 of 51 for 656 yards with 8 touchdowns. And yes, you're reading those stats right. He threw more touchdowns than incompletions. And of course, his go-to guy, Stedman Bailey, would also have a huge night, being responsible for 303 of those yards and 3 of those touchdowns. Just an overall great offensive performance from honestly everyone that stepped on the field that day. The West Virginia Mountaineers were now sitting at 4-0 and would move up in the polls to the A spot in the country. Like I mentioned earlier, that Baylor game was only part 1 of back-to-back games versus ranked opponents. Next up, West Virginia would be traveling to Texas to face off against the 11th ranked Texas Longhorns, in arguably the tougher matchup out of the two. At this point in the season, West Virginia might have been one of the hottest teams in the country, as the wider college football world was starting to find out about how insane Geno Smith was. When taking a look back at some of the Heisman watch lists around this time, a lot of the college football media was pushing the Geno Smith for Heisman agenda, which I mean his stats so far up to this point were video game-like, so to be fair, they weren't really that far off. Anyway, the big boys over at Texas didn't want to hear any of that crap, as in their mind, Geno Smith and West Virginia hadn't faced a team like this Longhorn squad yet. The 8th ranked West Virginia Mountaineers on the road against the 11th ranked Texas Longhorns, who would win this crucial Big 12 conference matchup.
Behind Geno Smith, play fake, Smith underneath, caught. And touchdown. Johnson comes in on third down. Here's that. Finds Johnson wide open. Down the sideline. Johnson out of bounds at the West. Third down goal. Bergeron looking. Touchdown Texas. Smith over the middle. Caught. Austin trying to get outside and does. Austin. The afterburners. Austin. Touchdown. 40 yards off. In motion, he's been quiet. After 3 touchdowns last week. Big running room, John to Gray. Gray cuts it in. The freshman down. Bergeron. Touchdown. 14. Geno Smith. And Smith lost it. Loose. Jeff Cook there. Touchdown Texas! Right next to Geno Smith. Here's Smith, steps up in the end zone. Touch! Robertson, Bergeron, touchdown. Play fake. Smith in the end zone. Whoa!
Now to put them in this position.
Bowie again. Touchdown Mountaineers.
Wow, back-to-back bangers of a game from the West Virginia Mountaineers. Versus Texas Longhorns, West Virginia would jump out to an early lead on the road, being up 21-7 a couple minutes into the second quarter. However, this Texas squad was ranked 11th in the country for a reason, and would settle down and get themselves back into the game, going on an offensive explosion, taking the lead going into halftime up by one of the Mountaineers 28-7. The third quarter would be back and forth, as West Virginia would retake the lead but wouldn't hold on to it for too long, as Texas would strike back to end the third up 38-34. West Virginia would respond with a 12-play, 76-yard drive that would end in a touchdown to open up the fourth, and from there the Mountaineers would start to settle down, holding the Longhorns scoreless in the fourth until Texas would score with less than 30 seconds left in the garbage time, with the final score being West Virginia 48, Texas 45. The win against the 11th ranked Texas Longhorns would bring West Virginia's record to 5-0, and their spot in the AP polls would climb up to the 5th spot in the country. It was a party in Morgantown. The Mountaineers were one of the hottest teams in the country, and the Heisman was practically Geno Smith's unless somehow West Virginia's season went to shit. But it's not like that would ever happen, right? Alright, so after a road game in Texas, the Mountaineers were back in Texas for another conference game versus the Texas Tech Red Raiders. So I don't know what happened during this game. Like, West Virginia just got straight up punched in the mouth this game, being down 35-7 going into halftime. And after halftime, much wouldn't really change, as the final score would be Texas Tech 49 to West Virginia's 14. Geno Smith got shut down this game, going 30 for 56, only throwing for 278 yards with a touchdown. While on the other hand, Seth Dogecoin looked like he was the Heisman hopeful, passing for 499 yards with 6 touchdowns, dicing up the Mountaineer defense all game long, playing a huge part in his team pulling out the win. While this loss definitely stung, it wasn't the end of the world, as West Virginia would only fall back 13 spots in the latest polls, and still had a lot left on their season to play for, as the Mountaineers were heading into arguably their most important stretch of the season. A 4-game stretch versus 4th-ranked Kansas State, TCU, Oklahoma State, and finally to end the stretch, a home game versus the 12th-ranked Oklahoma Sooners. The loss to Texas Tech definitely hurt West Virginia's natty hopes, but if the Mountaineers could go perfect during this stretch, they'd be back in the running for sure.
Klein, pump fake, over the middle, caught, touchdown! Quarterback sneak, touchdown. Each and every week, they do exactly that. They Klein to throw over the middle, caught again, touchdown.
Playing with a sense of urgency, they've done that today here in Morgantown.
Perry, big punt. Austin, watch out, 50, 40. Austin, goodbye! Touchdown, West Virginia! In the end zone is Boykin. Sets his feet. Out of the pocket, slingshots it downfield. Has a man at the 40. Big room to rumble. It's Boyce, 30, 25-20. Boyce, goodbye! Touch guards in the win for West Virginia. It kicks up. Boykin. In round. Now the pass. My oh my. Patterson rolling the dice. Here it's the second overtime. Boykin slingshots it low. Did he catch it? Yes! Little play action fake. Touch pass. Beauty toward the end zone. Blake Jackson. Dead. On 2nd and 6, play action to the middle of the end zone, touchdown! Or backfield. They go to Smith, and he just fires his way into the end zone. Geno. Gonna fire it wide open. Stewart. Did he score? Or is he out of bounds? Underneath. Saunders, 30, has a blocker, 15, 10, 5, and walks it in. Smith up top, man coverage, the button, touchdown! He picks up 4, 2nd down and 6. Austin finds the hole, dangerous, hits the edge, watch out, 30, 25, 15, touchdown, West Virginia! Up top. Touchdown. Stills. Second time. 4 yards, less than 2 minutes off the clock. They dump it down. Baylor. Touchdown. Yard line. Play action. Geno Smith up top. Got it.
4 touchdowns. Biggest snap of the game for Landry Jones right now.
Stills with number 4 on his back. Landry Jones sets. Puts the throw. End zone, climbs the runs up on 2 minutes, and Oklahoma is down 5. Slingshot it, caught, Justin Brown, 20, inside the 15-yard line. Touchdown, Stills.
Damn, what the hell happened to West Virginia during this stretch? We're not even going to speak about their game versus Kansas State, as they just got straight up manhandled, losing to the 4th-ranked Wildcats 55-14. Versus TCU, West Virginia would play a lot better, holding on to the lead for majority of this game. Although when the Mountaineers would have a chance to close out the match and secure the win, they would allow TCU to tie the game up with less than 2 minutes left in the fourth to send the game into overtime. Fast forward into the second overtime, West Virginia would score and kick the PAT. All they had to do was stop the TCU offense. However, the Horned Frogs would score and convert the 2-point conversion, handing the Mountaineers the loss 39-38. The following week against the Pokes, West Virginia would get smacked once again, losing to Oklahoma State 55-34. And in the final game of the stretch versus Sooners, both teams would bring their A game as the score would go back and forth, with West Virginia, similarly to their game versus TCU, taking the lead in the fourth quarter with a chance to win the game as long as their defense could get a stop. But for some reason this year, this Mountaineer defense was really ass, once again being unable to keep a team out of the end zone when it really counted, as Sooners would drive down the field scoring the game-winning touchdown to win the game 50-49. After going 0-4 through that stretch of conference play, West Virginia's record would slip to 5-5, and after starting the season off 5-0, the Mountaineers were now riding a 5-game losing streak. Thankfully for West Virginia, they would bounce back to end the regular season with 2 straight wins, taking down Iowa State 31-24 and Kansas 59-10. Bringing their current record on the season to 7-5. Now I know that early into the season, West Virginia was looking like they were potentially going to be making a run for the BCS National Championship game, and ending your season with the invite to the Pinstripe Bowl is extremely anticlimactic. But at least the Mountaineers still had a chance to end their season on a positive note, right? If they could take down the 7-5 Syracuse Orange.
Alston lined up behind Geno Smith. And in the gun, Smith is pressured and dropped for a safety. And Gully headed for the end zone here in New York. Prince Tyson Gully. Smith, screen. Bailey has blocker. Stedman Bailey shakes free. Heads for the end zone. Touchdown. Nassib flips it over the middle. Tipped and caught for a touchdown.
Size defensive end, but I think he's got potential.
Sailing into the secondary is Prince Tyson Gully down the sidelines, headed for the end zone. Smith almost bobbled the snap, takes a shot, loops it down, feeling for Bailey, and Bailey just second and goal. Again, they flip it near side, why not? You got to prove you can stop it. Gully waltzes into the end zone again on a screen. Vanilla, but effective.
This time, West Virginia.
West Virginia would end their 2012 football season with a loss in the Pinstripe Bowl to the Syracuse Orange 38-14, putting their final record on the season at 7-6. That little stretch of 5 losses in the middle of the season was horrific. But to end this section on a positive note, I guess, the Mountaineers could have gave up and phoned it in since their BCS goals were pretty much out of the window. But credit to them, they kept fighting to make a bowl game, so that has to mean something, right? Alright, leaving the great state of West Virginia, we head down south to Mississippi for the next team up, the Ole Miss Rebels. Where do I start with Ole Miss? Well, first I have to say that I've been wanting to cover the Rebels for a while. They're always, in my opinion, one of the biggest wild cards every single year in the SEC. It's like they either go slightly over 500 or they're in the college football playoff race. Which, saying out loud, I've gained some respect for you Ole Miss fans because every single season must be like hopping on a roller coaster right after you ate Wingstop. So you're probably wondering, which season am I choosing to take a look at? And while the options are plentiful, to stick with the themes of this video, I decided that it was only right to dive in head first into the 2014 season. Arguably one of the most exciting / heartbreaking seasons, and I wanted to say in recent Ole Miss history, but I'm not going to lie, last year was pretty heartbreaking for Rebels fans, so I don't think I can say that. Real quick, Ole Miss fans, let me know down below, what is your most heartbreaking season in program history? Comment it down below. Anyway, coming into the 2014 season, Ole Miss was coming off 2 pretty decent seasons, as in 2012 the Rebels would go 7-6, finishing with the BBVA Compass Bowl win, and in 2013 they would slightly improve, going 8-5 with the Music City Bowl win to end their season. And Ole Miss would see themselves ranked at one point during the season for the first time in a couple of years. Okay, so going back in time and looking through some of the SEC West preseason predictions for the 2014 college football season, the Ole Miss Rebels were expected to be pretty decent this year, finishing 5th in the West behind Alabama, Mississippi State, LSU, and Auburn. But I do have to mention, a common sentiment shared among the SEC West insiders was that if the Ole Miss quarterback could take his game to another level this year, then Ole Miss would have a nice shot at making it to their first SEC championship game in program history. So I'm just assuming the Ole Miss faithful were expecting big things to come from Oxford this year. And speaking of Oxford, let's take a look at some of the Rebels making plays on the field during this 2014 season. Leading the team in his 3rd year up to that point was head coach Hugh Freeze. And yes, he is a very controversial figure in the world of college sports, but his little turnaround he did at Ole Miss was pretty impressive, as the Rebels were coming off 2 losing seasons before he arrived in 2012. And in 2014, the year we're covering in this video, he had his defense playing out of their minds, as they would lead the NCAA in scoring defense, only allowing 16.1 points per game. Moving over to the man under center at quarterback was Bo Wallace, who'd passed for 3,194 yards with 22 touchdowns. And I know his stats aren't anything crazy, but I swear dude was so exciting to watch back in the day. Sliding to the running back room, the team leading rushing was running back Jalen Walton, who rushed for 586 yards with 5 touchdowns. And at the receiver spot, there's 2 dudes I want to shout out, starting with the team leading receiving Vince Sanders, who'd finished the season with 696 yards and 6 touchdowns, and on the flip side, Evan Ingram, who'd have 662 receiving yards with 2 touchdowns. And before we move on to the season, I have to shout out cornerback Senquez Golson. Get this, he would pick off 10 passes this season. No wonder why Ole Miss wasn't allowing that many points on defense this year. To open up the 2014 college football season, 18th ranked Ole Miss was beginning the year with a pretty tough non-conference game versus Boise State. And I know early in the season this matchup didn't carry that much weight, but when you put into perspective that this 2014 Boise State squad would finish the season with 12 wins and a Fiesta Bowl trophy, yeah, this matchup was big time. And I feel like I'd be doing a disservice if I didn't show these highlights. So here we are, a neutral site game to open up the season. Who'd be leaving Georgia with the L, the Broncos or the Rebels?
Edward play fake, getting rushed, still on his feet, throwing to the end zone, and intercepted in the end zone. Ole Miss, instead of having it around the 45, they have it on the 30, and Bo Wallace throwing to a wide open man, and it's a touchdown for Ole Miss. And try it again. There's the throw again. Treadwell has it. He's into the end zone. Touchdown.
To run the football.
Wallace down the seam. He's got Adebayo inside the 10. Adebayo into the end zone. Touchdown, Rebels.
2 catches. He only averaged 8 yards per catch.
And right on cue, Cody Core is loose in the Boise State secondary, and he may go again. Goodbye. Second touchdown of the night, and this one's over.
Damn, Ole Miss was not playing around in week 1, taking down the Boise State Broncos 35-13. The Rebel defense was on point this game, picking off the Bronco QB 4 times. And on offense, Bo Wallace, while he did throw a couple of interceptions himself, he would pass for 387 yards and 4 touchdowns, playing a huge role in the Ole Miss blowout victory. Huge win to open up the season. And now we're going to fast forward past the Rebels' next couple of games because they were all blowouts. Starting with Vanderbilt as they would win 41-3, Louisiana who they'd take down 56-15, and finally Memphis winning 24-3. Ole Miss was now sitting at 4-0 and would move up in the polls to the 11th spot in the country. Now this is where the video ramps up to a whole nother gear, as Rebels had back-to-back games versus top 15 opponents. And first up was a home game versus the big bad Wolves of the SEC, the 3rd-ranked Alabama Crimson Tide. Do I even have to explain how huge this game was? College Game Day was in the building and Katy Perry was the guest speaker. Would that be enough to give the Rebels the edge over the dynasty down in Tuscaloosa? Let's find out.
I couldn't do this to these great people. No. Forget about it. Give me the head.
Oh, no! She don't want anything to do with that trunk, Kelsey.
No, you don't have to leave. Walk it up.
Ole Miss won the toss. They've elected to take the ball, and that means that Jalen Walton, number 6, is back to return Adam Griffith's kick. Short. It's Mark Dyson instead of the short man. One man. Shot down the bounds from Wonderlich. Number 97 is the long-distance field goal kicker, and got it from an orphanage in Warsaw, Poland. That's not the way to. Fowler is in as a fullback. He gets the block right, and it is stuffed.
Blake Sims wasn't running back.
Play action. Play action. Sam strolls in. Remaining. Yep. Keep it conservative. Oh my gosh! How about that, Cyrus Jones? Deep. Got him! Evan Ingram, the tight end. And 7. There we go. Treadwell, touchdown.
Field does Ole Miss, whether Cooper's in the game or not.
Deep, down the middle. Wide open. Oh, Jay Howard. Caught from behind. That looks good. That is
Some problems over here, 3 by 1.
starts defensively for Alabama. He's got it wide open. Touchdown, Nick Sanders. This was 5-0, 1962. They finished undefeated that year. Christian Jones. Ball's out. Ole Miss appears to have it. Game calls.
Another low snap. Sims deep into the end zone, double coverage. It is up for grabs. It might be, it's out of the end zone.
Well, this will be reviewed.
Sinquez Golson thought he had the interception.
He's got it. His foot comes down. Now, is he juggling it? He's got that football. Controls that football. That'll be reviewed.
Here's the call.
After further review, the ball was intercepted in the end zone.
Mississippi State wins big, and now Ole Miss knocks off Alabama. Hugh Freeze takes his football teams and knocks them off.
What a game from the Ole Miss Rebels, as they would upset the third-ranked Alabama Crimson Tide. Early into this game, neither team could really crack the end zone. It would take until about 3 minutes left in the second quarter for a team to score, 6. As Alabama would strike on a 1-yard quarterback run, Bama would also score once again right before halftime to go up 14-3. The Rebels would fight back though, coming out of halftime scoring on a 14-yard touchdown pass from Bo Wallace to cut the lead. Alabama would kick a field goal to close out the third, and although it would take nearly the whole entire fourth quarter, Ole Miss would finally tie the game with about 5 minutes left. The game was starting to favor Ole Miss, and to prove that, Bama would turn the ball over on the following kickoff, allowing Ole Miss to strike and take the lead. The Tide were still in this game though, as they would drive down the field, but like they had done all game, the defense would make a huge play, picking off Alabama to secure the win 23-17. This win was huge and would put Ole Miss's record at 5-0, and their ranking in the latest polls would move up all the way to the 3rd spot, their highest ranking since 1970. It was a party in Oxford. Unfortunately, there wasn't too long to celebrate because if you remember earlier into this video, I mentioned that Ole Miss had back-to-back top 15 matchups. And with Bama out of the way, it was time to travel down to Texas and the home of the 12th man. Part of being a top 5 team in the country is being able to win back-to-back ranked games. Could Ole Miss get the job done and keep their insanely hot start to the season going? Or would the roar of the 12th man be too much?
As it is first down, Wallace on play action, takes a shot over the middle, has a man wide open. Boyjo down inside the... Mathers to the right of Wallace. Quarterback keeper on the edge, diving for the end zone. So quick downfield. On first down, Wallace fires across the middle, has a man wide open first.
For the quick play.
9th play of this drive, first and goal. Wallace again, the keeper, just like the first touchdown. Completions, he's 9 for 9, but only 43 yards. Hill in the pocket. Overthrown and intercepted. Intercepted by Cody Pruitt, the senior leader of the secondary, weaving through the Aggies. Inside the 2010, touchdown Ole Miss.
He's up into the line of scrimmage.
Empty backfield. We have not seen Wallace take many downfield shots yet tonight, but here's one again. Single coverage, throws to the end zone, touchdown. Quincy, day in the Lone Star State.
How about that game?
Hill, flush out, dropped the ball, picks it up. A scramble for Ole Miss is running with it. A flag is down.
It was a bunch of bodies laying on the ground, and Keith Lewis.
74 the offense. That penalty is declined. The result of the play, touchdown.
A second defensive touchdown for the Land Sharks defense on the Hill fumble. The scoop and score by Lewis.
And there's a bunch of bodies there. You're thinking, oh, the ball.
Yes, sir, this game was all Ole Miss, as they would finish off their stretch of back-to-back ranked games with the win on the road against the 14th-ranked Aggies 35-20. Now, while this score seemed like Texas A&M was in the game, that's not the case, as going into halftime, Ole Miss would be up 21-0, and until at less than 9 minutes in the fourth, the Rebels would be up 35-7, although the Aggies would score a couple touchdowns in garbage time. The huge win on the road would bring the Rebels' record to 6-0, and even though their win was very impressive, they would move up in the polls, staying at the 3rd spot. But that wasn't much of a problem, because if they kept winning, they would be just fine. And that's exactly what they would do, as in their next game they would host the Tennessee Volunteers and make quick work of them, taking them down 34-3. Ole Miss defense was on one this game, forcing 4 turnovers and picking off the Vols quarterback 3 times, also only allowing Tennessee to total 191 yards. Now 7-0, the Ole Miss Rebels were rolling through the 2014 college football season, and the wider college football world were starting to take notice of this incredible season brewing in Oxford, evident by their cool-ass feature on the cover of Sports Illustrated. And this is random, but I remember having that cover of both Mississippi teams on my wall in my room. I used to collect Sports Illustrated covers. They used to be so hard back in the day. And since I don't remember the last time I've seen one, can anyone tell me if Sports Illustrated is still a thing, and if their covers are still tough? Alright, Ole Miss was on top of the world. They were getting all of the hoes, they had aura, and they were the talk of the SEC, which is a great thing for a program like Ole Miss who doesn't necessarily get the most love, but every positive has a negative. And now the Rebels had a gigantic target on their back, and there was a whole line of SEC schools waiting to get their shot at Ole Miss to ruin their season. The Rebels' next stretch would be brutal, minus a game versus an FCS team, which included a road game at Death Valley versus 24th-ranked LSU Tigers, a home game versus 3rd-ranked Auburn, and finally to end this stretch, a road game versus Arkansas. Ole Miss didn't have to be perfect. They could afford a loss, but only one. Could they survive?
Play clock at 4. Fire, far side, caught. Diving into the end zone is Cody Core. Just his second career miss. This from 21. No mistake this pass. Behind Neighbors, the fullback, fighting forward. It's going to be very close. No. Jennings, play action fake, throws it to the end zone. Touchdown. Right here, Wallace on the sneak. Didn't get there.
But a very gifted runner. He's going to keep it straight up the middle. Good enough to get to the end zone. Touchdown. Wallace under center. The pitch to Mathers. Trying to get to the corner. Got a block. Touchdown. Wallace throws a screen to Treadwell. Giving it back to number 1 for the top. Number 4 leading by a touchdown. Nick Marshall. Again, firing long. Out there in double coverage, and he got it to Sammy Coates for the touchdown. The 15. Wallace, quick throw, completes it. Evan Ingram, the tight end, foot race. He wins it. Touchdown. Punching him in the mouth. Just outside the 1. It's Nick Marshall all alone. Never went down. Touchdown over. A lot of chess match going on right now. Marshall fires. Got a man for the touchdown. Wallace, play action, the slant, got it, complete. Ingram, the tight end is inside the 5 to regain the lead. Bo Wallace, did he get there? Ball comes out of the end. He's in, touchdown. Payne or Thomas. They set it up in a hurry. The pitch to Artis Payne, and he's got enough energy to get to the end zone. Touchdown, Auburn. Auburn's going to bring a blitz. Quick throw out to who? Guess who? Treadwell weaving through and to the end zone. Touchdown. And we're checking here to see if the ball crossed the plane. No, it may not have. That's the only reason we showed you that replay again, is to see whether or not it was a touchdown. So Treadwell has caught 10 passes. It's so sad.
Here's the running back. Play action. Allen goes deep. Got a man. Caught.
Man, Ole Miss would sadly go 0-3 through this tough stretch of ball. But unlike West Virginia, the Rebels wouldn't get smacked around, as they were literally in all of these games, minus the last one versus Arkansas. They got blown out in that one. But let's start with the game on the road versus LSU. Ole Miss actually held the lead for majority of this match, being up 7-3 all the way into the 4th quarter. And I know the Tigers would put together a decent drive to end the game and play really good defense, but Ole Miss let this one slip away as they forced 4 turnovers on LSU and couldn't turn them into points. And they even had a chance to tie or retake the lead late, but would get stuffed on a 4th and 1, losing 10-7. And while that game was heartbreaking, I think their matchup versus Auburn has to take the cake. I don't think I need to rehash the events because I'm sure it's burnt into everyone's memory. But to speedrun Auburn vs Ole Miss, this game was insane. There was a ton of points scored and it would all come down to the final 2 minutes. As Ole Miss was down 35-31, but they would drive down the field and would seemingly score a touchdown to put them ahead. But after a review that felt like it must have lasted forever for Ole Miss fans, the call would be ruled a touchback, giving possession of the ball back to Auburn, ending the game with the Tigers on top 35-31. This loss was extremely tough for the Rebels, as I mean they should have won that game and still had their playoff hopes alive, but it is what it is. Now Ole Miss was sitting with a record of 7-2 and would fall back in the polls the 11th spot, but would bounce back, taking down the FCS school 48-0, setting up a huge matchup with their in-state rival, the 4th-ranked Mississippi State Bulldogs. I already covered this game in a video I did a long time ago, but long story short, Ole Miss would ruin the best chance we had of seeing a team from Mississippi making it to the college football playoffs since the 2023 season, winning the game 31-17. That huge win to end the season would bring the Rebels' record to 9-3 and their ranking in the final polls before bowl season at the 9th spot in the country. Now, technically they had went 2-3 to end their season, but come on, are we really counting that FCS game? Regardless, the 2014 Ole Miss Rebels had a chance to end their season on a positive note. They could take down the 6th-ranked TCU Horned Frogs in the Peach Bowl. I know halfway through the 2014 season, Ole Miss looked destined for a playoff bid, but things happen and plans change, and now the Rebels were in a New Year's Six bowl game. Could they finish off their unfortunate end to the season with a win?
2nd and 6.
Pass.
This could be a double pass.
Touchdown.
Listen me, trick play to open up the game. How about it? Aaron Green, touchdown. Gibbs again. And into the end zone again. touchdown, Boykin to Dotson. They are attacking down after down. Tough to escape that. Was that picked off? Third down and 11 for Boykin. Here's that jump ball you talk about.
Wow.
And who comes down with it but Listenby? Play action for Boykin. As he gets to the edge, slings it to the end zone. Wow. And another touchdown. Josh Doctson stepped in front. Dotson with a touchdown catch. 27 yards from Boykin.